Hi, I'm Chris Clark, publisher of NACD Directorship magazine, and this is BoardVision. Today's subject is the important developments in the boardroom. And it sounds like a rather general title, but I want to take advantage of our guest today, Martha McGarry of Skadden. She is a partner there and is well known and well respected in terms of global M&A, corporate governance, and shareholder activism preparedness. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you.
Given your wide trekking in the boardroom in 2013, I was hoping that you could share with me and our audience the insights pertaining to director behavior.
Well, I think it was an interesting year. I think the insights are not just mine, but those of many other commentators. And I think that a lot of people have said that there was a noticeable amount of cautionary behavior on the part of directors this year, a trend to be more risk adverse and less embracing of bold behavior. And I think there are a lot of good reasons for that. One, we have an economy which is still experiencing very slow growth and a lot of economic uncertainty looking forward. Two, I think it may very well be the cumulative impact of all the governance changes that have really shifted the pendulum very far in the direction and in favor of shareholders vis-a-vis management and boards, and a sense of vulnerability that comes with that on the part of directors with respect to the risk of a possible withhold vote. And number three, you have the prevalence of activists very much on the scene with some of the largest companies in America. And many, many board members living through these campaigns, spending hours and hours in reacting to them and dealing with them. And I think all of this has an impact eventually on director behavior.
All of the research that we've done, as well as third parties, the number one concern for directors really is on the compliance regulatory side. But number two, and it's this close, really is the shareholder activism problem. And you know this, it has a profound effect both on the C-suite and the board. So if you would share with me and our audience the specific developments there, I think that will be very helpful.
You have an enormous influx of funds into hedge funds because they've had double-digit returns. And so your traditional passive investors are looking at these returns and wanting to invest with these funds, and in some cases you're actually seeing them partner with them in a very visible way. And that, I think, is a very big change and one that many management teams have been surprised by. Another development that has been announced recently by one of the proxy advisory firms, ISS, is the fact that they are going to apply a lower voting threshold for shareholder proposals, which is a majority of the shares cast rather than a majority of the outstanding shares. And if a proposal passes and the board does not adopt that proposal, they will seek withdraw campaigns against those directors. So that is going to be that could have actually pretty profound change in terms of promulgating shareholder proposals. You also have private action on the part of some companies. Hewlett-Packard, for example, entered into a settlement last year whereby they adopted a shareholder access bylaw that would allow a 3% shareholder to nominate candidates to the board of the company on management's slate. Verizon did the same thing at the end of last year. That also is, even though the SEC never promulgated shareholder access, you're seeing it occur slowly through private action. I think the other development, and this is more recent, is you're seeing some of these boards fight back. You're seeing the adoption of poison pills. So those are four developments that I think go in different directions but could have real ramifications going forward.
2013 was not a banner year for volume. First of all, why is that, and can you project for the next year, will there be any substantial geographic or industry shifts?
Well, I think you're right. 2013 was, I think, the slowest year, according to some reports, since 2009. I think, frankly, lack of confidence, lack of clarity about where not just the U.S. economy was going, but the global economy, put a real damper on deals. There was an uptick in the fourth quarter, and that seems to be continuing in the first quarter, and we'll see if it lasts.
An uptick across the board or by certain category?
Well, I think that what you're seeing is a concentration of deals in a couple sectors. Certainly, telecom, technology, and media has been extremely active across the board. I think people are also thinking that the oil and gas business, which has been driven and redeploying assets, there is a lot of speculation that that will continue as well this year. And finally, you have the healthcare field, which many people have been predicting for years is going to consolidate in certain sectors. I think people are still waiting to see, now that the Affordable Care Act is rolling out, what the impact will be on companies economically. Once that assessment is within reach, I think you could start to see some activity in that industry as well.
When it comes to that seesaw, that balance that always comes to the board in terms of risk-taking strategies, what I call real opportunities, versus something that you touched on earlier, this reputational management, this reputational fear. Give me your firsthand takes.
Well, I think that aside from the fear of activism, the fear of withdrawal campaigns, most of the boards that I have seen, and I think others would agree, are engaged in a process of trying to steer between deploying the company's assets for long-term growth versus short-term growth. And it's the activists who have really been pushing for the short-term growth. And I think the process of trying to think through those issues and steer between those competing goals is going to continue. One of the ways I think boards can deal with this in a very intelligent way is to work with management to adopt a very well thought out strategic plan and to adhere to that plan, because in the event there is an activist attack, or for that matter a hostile takeover, having a very well thought out strategic plan that management has been steering toward has always been a very effective defense. But apart from that, we'll see whether or not this year there's also a little bit of a change on the part of boards and more confidence and perhaps even a fighting back. You are seeing a little bit of a grassroots movement of putting poison pills in place, shareholder rights plans, tightening up advance notice provision in bylaws, and taking other action to defend themselves to try to protect the autonomy of their decision making. So given all the activity that's occurring in various directions, it should be a really interesting year.
Well, I like your key word of adherence, and NACD does pride itself in being the voice of the director. We might not use the phrase fighting back, but certainly being proactive is part and parcel of what we do. And I wanted to thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me.
On behalf of Skadden and NACD, thank you for viewing today. I'm Chris Clark, and this is BoardVision.